Right, I'm back again. I haven't added any extra to this because I'm going to put in your next demonstration. When we create waistbands, neckbands and cuffs on sweaters, or for decorative reasons, we sometimes use what's called a rib. Now a rib is useful because whereas the average knitting has stretch that way, a rib has an elastic stretch that way, which pulls it back in and back into shape very neatly. So if you want something that's tight around the cuff or tighter at the waist or at the neck, we use a rib. And in order to use a rib, we alternate a knit stitch followed by a purl stitch. So we're going to do knit 1, purl 1, rib. I'll say that again, knit 1, purl 1, rib. So a knit stitch into the front leg from front to back, yarn under and over, through and off. Now I'm going to move my wool from the back between the needles to the front, ready to purl, and I'm going to go into the front leg from front to back, go under and over, push down and through, slide off, and then going between the needles again, move my yarn to the back, and then another knit stitch, front leg from back to front, in, over, push through, slide off, move the yarn from the back between the needles to the front, front leg from front to back, under and over, using the thumb to help, push down and through, slide off. The next stitch is a knit, so we go between the needles to the back of the work, front leg from front to back, from back to front, in, over, through and off, yarn between the needles from the back to the front. This is sometimes called yarn forward in patterns. Front leg from front to back, under and over, through and off, yarn back, so between the needles to the back of the work, in, over, through and off. That's our knit one. Between the needles, ready for our purl. Front leg from front to back, in, over, push down and through, slide off. Between the needles, yarn back, front leg from back to front, in, over, up and through, slide off, and the last stitch, yarn to the back, front leg from front to back, under and over, push down and through, slide off, and I have my first row of rib. And you can see, if you look at it, a knit stitch, a purl stitch, a knit stitch, a purl stitch, a knit stitch, a purl stitch, alternating until I get to the end of my row. When I turn this round, because I have an even number of stitches, on the other side I see exactly the same thing. A knit stitch, a purl stitch, a knit stitch, a purl stitch. And people say to me, how do I know I'm doing the right thing? If you're working knit 1, purl 1, rib, you knit all the knits, you purl all the purls. So let's do our second row. So it's a knit stitch, I can tell that because it's got a V. So front leg from back to front, in, over, through and off. Bring the yarn between the needles, so yarn forward, do my purl, front leg from front to back, in, over, through and off, move my yarn to the back, there's a knit stitch, move my yarn to the front, do my purl stitch, move the yarn to the back, do my knit stitch, my yarn to the front, my purl stitch, yarn to the back, my knit stitch, yarn to the back front, my purl stitch. You notice I'm not talking you through the stitch now, because as you're looking at it you should be able to tell me which part this is. Yarn forward, and if I look here now, you notice that it's starting to pull in. It's becoming narrower, and that's because the rib stitch naturally closes up so that it has that elastic effect. When you open it up you can see the rib, but it naturally wants to close itself up and hold the knitting slightly closer together. So you can go ahead and work several rows of knit 1, purl 1, rib.